Tomorrow's parties started from this desire to make something about the future. And the big thing that we found we were talking about when we were starting work on the project was whether the future was a kind of optimistic thing for us or whether it was a pessimistic thing for us, whether we were hopeful or depressed about what the future might bring. And I think one of the things that the performance tries to do is to float towards the audience all of these scenarios of the future.
In the future, office workers will have telephones implanted, and mechanics will have sets of screwdrivers or other tools in place of their fingers. And as this goes on, it will get harder for people to change jobs because changing will just require too much surgery.
We're a company that uses a lot of improvisation to make its work. So we started with a blank piece of paper. How do we approach this idea, hope? And we came up eventually with this idea of different ideas about what the future might be.
In the future, overpopulation might be so great that groups of people get together and have just one body.
Or people will eat one another.
Originally, we wanted to do a piece that was going to be a series of stories that would swap backwards and forwards. We wrote quite a lot of nice stories, but they didn't really exchange terribly well. And then we just started improvising these predictions or speculations about how the future will be. And that felt like the right path for this particular show, so that's where we ended up.
Or actually, in the future, it'll be, well, it'll be pretty much like this. And things will be pretty much the same. One or two things might change, but basically things will remain the same.
Or there'll be women from Earth and males from another planet. And those extraterrestrial males, they'll be just like human men, but superior to them in every way possible.
Tomorrow's Parties is one of those performances that we've made where at the heart of it there's a kind of improvised game or almost a competitive conversation between two people. And in this piece, what they're arguing about, what they're competing about is describing the future, floating these scenarios of the future towards the audience. I think we use these games because we want that there's something that you're following as an audience. You want to know how something's going to turn out. You want something that's got twists and turns. You want something that's capable of pulling surprises or developing in particular ways. And because generally we've not been really so interested in stories, we've tended to use these kind of game structures because they give us that kind of gripping moment-to-moment sense of dialogue and progress and conflict. It's not a conflict about characters, it's a conflict about ideas, and that's very much what's at the heart of Tomorrow's Party.
When we were doing some of the research, I found this great thing. It was like a hope or optimism scale. It's a scientific psychological test that people do to measure how hopeful they are, and I think I scored as being quite a hopeful person.
I'm a sort of pessimist, I have to say.
Or actually, in the future, people won't really live together at all. No, I mean, they'll withdraw more and more, they'll get more and more isolated, and they won't really want to have anything to do with one another.
Or there won't be any people at all.
I think what's great about this piece is that, in a way, meaning in it isn't very fixed. And each of the suggestions about the future, they kind of, they move around a bit, they shimmer. And maybe that in itself is also hopeful, that things are constantly shifting and constantly changing, and that means there always has to be some hope possible.
Everybody will live in one gigantic city, and it will cover the whole earth, all of the oceans, all of the mountains, all of the deserts, all of the forests, all of the landmass will be one heaving, crowded, enormous city, so that effectively everybody will live in the same place.
When we speak about the future, very often what we're speaking about is some other things. Usually we're speaking about either the past or about the present. And I suppose any conversation about the future, politically or socially, or in terms of important things that are happening in the world, to do with ecology, to do with technological progress, to do with human rights, to do with gender, all of these things, any of them as topics, when we speak about them as future things, really what we're doing is we're reflecting on our anxieties and tensions that we see in the society around us now. I think that's how the conversation about the future always works. It's never really about the future. It's always about what's troubling us now as a culture.